everybody. It is the KEW Exchange, where knowledge through experience transforms to wisdom. And my guest today is Professor Rao from India. So he is joining us late at night, which is the reason we're doing it so early today. He is an accomplished author. He is a Global 360 number one ranked thought leader, and he wanted to have a conversation today about overcoming failures. So, Professor Rao, welcome from India.
Thanks for having me on your show.
You, without a doubt, you're. I've gone through a lot of your stuff, and you're very impressive. And let's start out simply, right? Can you just explain a little bit about who you are to the audience, just so they get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, I was born in India, and I'm speaking from India. And I was born in a small village. I rose from humble origins, and I was born into a toxic family, and grew up in a toxic environment. And I'm dyslexic from childhood. I'm not an intelligent student. I am an average student, even below average students, right from my childhood. But right from my childhood, I'm passionate about education and learning. But I was not getting the opportunities where I was born because my life was full of struggles and suffering since childhood, and I had to support my father in a tea stall because I'm the elder son in my family, and I had to support my father who had a tea stall. I used to clean dishes. Sometimes I used to serve tea. Sometimes I used to collect cash from the customers, and I used to go to school as well. And so we had a lot of financial problems right from my childhood. I wanted to study, but I was not able to get education. So at the age of 15, I had a dream to serve my nation. I wanted to serve in the Indian Air Force. So I was short in height. I had asthma problem. I was lean built. So many health issues I had. But I had some burning ambition right from my childhood to do something. I don't know what I had to do. I didn't know at that time. So at the age of 18, I dropped out of my college uh, to support my parents financially and joined the Indian Air Force in the lowest rank in the Indian Air Force. And it was a very challenging life and a very tough life in the military. You know very well, military life is very challenging. Morning 4 o'clock, I used to get up, I used to run, then a lot of physical activities, physical punishments, and all those things helped me to become a healthy citizen. And I overcame the negative attitude that I got from my parents and the environment in which I was brought up. I started liking Indian Air Force because this Indian Air Force was far better than my toxic family background. So rather, I thank God for taking me out of that toxic family background and for putting me into the Indian Air Force, where I was getting good food, good training, and I'm associated with the positive people. When I was barely 18, I had an opportunity to meet various people across India because I was born in a small village. I didn't know how to behave with others. The food habits were not proper. Dress, my dress code was not good. So many drawbacks I had. But I started aligning with defense people, military people, and I acquired positive attitude. And even night 10 o'clock, everybody sleeps in the military. But I used to read from night 10 to 11 o'clock because I stopped my education. So 1 hour of that night, 1 hour, I used to invest my time for my education. So even in the training center, which was very tough, I used to go to street light and I used to invest because all soldiers were supposed to sleep night 10 o'clock as per rules. But I used to go out in the street light and I used to read for 1 hour in the night to complete my graduation. So that kind of fire I had in my life, and I served in the Indian Air Force for more than a decade, and I acquired various qualifications. I completed my graduation. I supported my parents financially, and I supported my friend for education, my sister, and all those things. I supported my family as much as I could, and I was getting very less salary, very limited money at that time from Air Force because I served in the lowest rank. But within that, I was sending money for parents. Then within that, I was saving for my education. And when all soldiers were enjoying their life, weekends and leave, I used to invest my weekend time and the leave which I was supposed to enjoy for my education. And like that, I acquired 6 qualifications in the Indian Air Force, like DME, BSc, MA, MBA, PGDCLL, PGDBM, likewise 6 qualifications I have paid. So after serving for more than a decade, my father-in-law invited me to join his trading business. I trusted him and joined the trading business. Unfortunately, my father-in-law backtracked. Why? Because my brother-in-law backstabbed. He didn't like me getting into the business, so my father-in-law backtracked and my brother-in-law backstabbed. So the business life couldn't go well. Then I left business and I joined teaching field in the year 2007 because I had education. That education helped me at that time.
So,
When everybody betrayed, that education helped me to become a faculty member. Then subsequently, I earned my PhD in soft skills and became a professor. Yeah,
so you're a professor and you teach at a university, correct?
I
So you,
taught for educational institutions, not exactly universities. In the colleges, I taught for
okay.
MBA students, for
Hmm.
engineering students. I taught even I taught for EMBA for universities.
Okay. What?
Likewise,
So what are, let's talk about a few of your books, right? Because you have books that you've written, you've published many papers. Let's talk about a couple of your books that you've done.
yeah. After I joined the teaching field as a faculty member, I joined for PhD, and 4 years I worked hard and my PhD. After I earned my PhD, I became a professor. So
Okay.
after I became a professor, then I became an author. In the year 2010, I became an author, and now we are in 2021. So during a span of 11 years, I have written 60 books, published 50 books so far, and still 10 more books are yet to be published. So this, I will show you one book, which is the latest book. This book is See the Light in You. For this book, His Holiness Dalai Lama, the Nobel Laureate, has written a foreword for this book. This is on mindfulness,
Okay.
spirituality.
Okay.
So this is the book. This is one of my favorite books. His Holiness Dalai Lama, the Nobel laureate, has written the foreword for this book, and I have dedicated this book to the present Vice President of India, Mr. M. Venkaiah Naidu. So this book talks about mindfulness, various aspects of health, physical fitness, how to lead life meaningfully. So this is one of the books out of 50 books that have been published.
That's 15 or 50?
50,
50?
50 have been published.
That's
60
that's
I have written. 60 books I have written. 10 books are yet to be published.
that's
Because of coronavirus, publishers are not coming forward.
right, right.
So this is the challenge for others. So 10 books are still lying with me. And hopefully when things turn around, I'll be able to publish those 10 books also. And I'm writing 5 more books right now, apart from that. So I keep
And
writing my books.
you have a lot of knowledge to share. So wait, so how did you, okay, so how did the Dalai Lama write the forward to your book? I'm curious now.
Uh, Dalai Lama lives in India, and whenever I write a book, I look at who is the competent person, who is the correct person to write forward for that book, right? So I found for this mindfulness, spirituality, Dalai Lama is the ideal person to write forward. Then I sent an email to Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama consented, and he has written a forward for this book. Okay. Now, for instance, if I write a book on CEOs, I'll approach CEOs to write a book. I wrote a book, 21 Success Sutras for CEOs. Of course, CEO could not write. Somebody else wrote. Mark Thompson has written a foreword. And for some of my books, Marshall Goldsmith has written a foreword for my book. And Dave Aldrich has written a foreword for one of my books. Likewise, many people have written forewords for my book. For one of my books on women leadership, the Vice President of India, Mr. M. Venkaiah Naidu has written a foreword for that book. So
Wow.
whenever I write a book, I'll approach the correct person who is the competent, capable, and a relevant person for that book, and I'll approach him or her to write a foreword. Uh,
And
uh, uh,
you just reach out directly, or do you have relationships with these people beforehand?
no, nothing like that. See, the thing is, as I met you, I mean online. So people across the world, they respect knowledge. Okay, they don't care for the wealth. Real people, genuine people, they don't look at the wealth. They see real wealth is knowledge, wisdom. So you and I are connected because I have knowledge. So I can add something to you. You can dig out something from me, and you can give something to your audiences. So you are adding value to your audiences, and one way you are giving me an opportunity to share my knowledge with the world. It's like that. So similarly, these people are not exactly known to me, but I have credibility globally
That's
because I have published around 250 research papers in international journals. 250 research papers is not a joke.
no,
Okay. Uh,
that's a
uh,
lot of that's a
that
lot of
too, that too, emerald journals, leader to leader, says top publishers, they have published research papers. Articles can be written. Research papers are very difficult. So I have written research papers. Even Entrepreneur Magazine publishes my articles. Chief Learning Officer Magazine publishes my articles. And I serve on the editorial boards of various journals as well right now. So these all things build credibility, right? Now Dalai Lama has written a foreword that gives me credibility, and I am grateful to His Holiness Dalai Lama for taking time out of his busy schedules to write a foreword for this book. It's like that.
So, with your knowledge and your wisdom that you're sharing globally, right? Because you've been through a lot of rough experiences. You grew up in a toxic household. You found refuge in the Indian Air Force, and you leveraged it to get knowledge, right? Because that's where you went to seek knowledge. Through your experiences, your knowledge is transferred into wisdom, right? And that's where how you're sharing your wisdom globally. What is the most important thing that you think you've learned so far out of everything you've been through?
Uh, I liked several better lessons in my life because my life is not a cakewalk. Even today, I am not financially strong. I still belong to a lower middle class family. I stay in a rented flat. The rented flat means it belongs to my children, so I stay. I don't have any income for the last 6 years. So I have so many financial challenges, but even then, I share my knowledge. Why? Because I don't want people to suffer the way I suffered, because I lacked guidance. When I wanted guidance, I couldn't get. And if you look at most of the Nobel laureates, why they were successful? They said they were successful because they were guided by their teachers when they were young. So research shows that many Nobel laureates, they give credit to their teachers because their teachers spotted the talent in Nobel laureates, and they spotted and supported. So these Nobel laureates worked in those areas and won Nobel prizes. So what is required is if young people get uh, guidance at the right time, and if they can grow big in their later parts of lives. So that's the reason what I have done is that I started Vision 2030 1 million global leaders. So it's a non-profit one I have created, and even I have created a blog also where I share my knowledge freely with the world. Nowadays, I am sharing through my YouTube channel by name Professor MS Rao. So I'm passionate about sharing my knowledge freely with the world because my lifespan is limited. But whatever is possible within my lifespan, I want to do something for the people. I don't want people to suffer the way I suffered. I struggled, suffered, and I was betrayed, backstabbed by many people, especially by my relatives. But even then, I didn't give up because God has given me life and I have to do something for the people. So I'm sharing my knowledge, right? So the point here is that a wise man learns from the mistakes of others, whereas a foolish man learns from his own mistakes. You can say that I was a fool. I failed. I trusted people. I failed, and I was a fool. And now I have become wise. But the fact is that everybody makes mistakes at some point of life, and they become fools. It's not that I became a fool. Many people become fools, but they don't disclose that they became fools. I honestly admit that I was a fool. I was cheated by my own relatives, backstabbed by some people. I was a fool. Now I have become wise. So I don't want people to suffer the way I suffer.
So,
That's why I share my knowledge freely with the world. Yeah.
so you firmly believe in putting your energy into the goodwill of humanity, and and fully believe that it's, even if it doesn't come back to you, it's at least going to come back through humanity, and
See,
it's
the
gonna.
thing is, we should never expect anything from others. We should be givers. See, if you give it to the universe will give you. I don't want anything from universe like money or wealth or anything. I want some happiness. The day, the people should know that yeah, there was one Professor M.S. Rao who has added some value to the society, who shared freely knowledge freely with the world despite having financial challenges. He was a good man. He added some knowledge to us. If people say that, that's more than sufficient. What else do you need, right? So money comes and goes, power comes and goes, but it is the values, the knowledge, the ethics that we share with others, we maintain, that matter, and at the end of the day, at the end of the life.
So I just finished. I'll do audiobooks, right? Because it's easier for me. I don't like physically reading, but I love listening to audiobooks. I'm an auditory learner. I just finished The Soul of Money, right? And it talks a lot about India in there. I've done lots of business in India over the last decade, well, last 15 years. Um, I have connections in India. I do lots of different stuff globally. Um, but The Soul of Money talks about money with pure intent creates a better globe, get better humanity. Money with ill will and negative intent is a self-fulfilling prophecy of destroying each other. Um, it seems like you're living that day to day, and you're living that every moment of your life without your currency is knowledge, and that is what you are bringing to humanity. Um, how do we get you more exposure in the U.S. for all the books that you've written? Because I think the U.S. needs a lot more of the books that you're writing, because to me, the cycle that we're entering here is going to be a lot more like an Indian economy than it's going to be like a typical United States economy. Because I feel like we are slowing down at such a rapid pace. The jobs aren't going to be there at the rate that people think they're going to be. The currency is going to start getting devalued at some point because they're writing trillions and trillions of dollars in checks that they can't cash. Um, we're going to have some issues, right, for the next 10 to 20 years. This is all going to come to a head. How do we get your knowledge shared more appropriately across the United States?
My books are available online, and okay, well, let me tell you very clearly. Whenever my research papers are published, I get a feedback where my research papers and are being downloaded. When I see it's mostly in US, my research papers are downloaded, not even in India. Although I am an Indian, where my research papers are to be downloaded more in India, but it's a fact that my research papers are downloaded more in USA, right? Similarly, my books are sold online in USA because nowadays books are available on Amazon online. Anyone can purchase the books. So I'm available on online, and even if you look at my interviews, I was interviewed by many Americans. For instance, only 1% of Indians have interviewed me. 99% of the people who interviewed me are non-Indians. I
I
hope
find it very interesting.
I have made it very clear. Out of 100%, only 1% of the interviews were done by Indians. 99% of the interviews were done by non-Indians, especially Americans. So that means where I'm being more respected more in non-Indian countries. My knowledge is being respected more in non-Indian countries. although I am an Indian. So
Why?
that my knowledge is already going to developed countries, especially USA, UK, Canada, and other countries. Yeah.
So why do you think that is?
See, the thing is, people at home they take people for granted. The person who is considered wisest in the world is considered the most fool person in his homeland. Have you heard this quote? I don't know. The
No,
person who is considered wisest in the world is considered as a fool in his own place. There
I've
is a
never.
quote.
But
So here what happens? People take me for granted. Here what happens? People take me for granted. Oh, what is there? Okay. But whereas the people, especially who I interacted, they cared more for my knowledge, not for my status. They cared more for my wisdom, not for my background. See, the people who have endorsed my books, the people who have written forewords are mostly non-Indians. Indians have written, like Vice President of India has written, and Kiran Bedi, the Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, and Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama has written a foreword. Some of the Indians have written foreword, but most of the forewords were written by non-Indians. Most of the endorsements I have received from non-Indians. It is something very unique in my case, and I came to a conclusion that the person who is wisest in the world, who is treated as the wisest person in the world, is treated as a fool in his own place.
and
That's how it is.
let me stop you for 1 second. What is your website?
I don't have any website as such, and I have a blog, Vision 2030 1 million global leaders, and I
Okay.
am available on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn because that's a professional network. I don't care much for Facebook. Uh, I love LinkedIn. Why? Because it's a professional network. All professionals are there, so I interact with them. I connect with them, and nowadays I am taking more interest, especially after during the COVID-19. I have changed my mind, and I started I'm becoming a guest for many of the podcasts and various websites, and also I started uploading videos during the coronavirus. Earlier, I was doing only written interviews and written. I was writing articles. So I reinvented with the changing times and technologies, especially because of the coronavirus.
So what's your blog's website?
That Vision 2030 1 million global leaders. That is the blog. I have 4 blogs, but the blog which is very active is Vision 2030 1 million global leaders,
Vision.
where I
Okay, so it's Vision 2030, 1 million global leaders.
is my blog.
Okay, and that's .com.
Yeah, .com, .in, I don't know exactly. So it's you. If you type, you will get that Vision 2030 1 million global leaders, where I share my knowledge freely with the world. I share free quotations, free articles, free videos. I'll be sharing, posting regularly.
Okay, give me one. I'm just typing it so that it goes on the screen for anybody. Just bear with me 1 second. I know I'm covering my camera here, but I'm trying to type here, so we'll see how it goes. Let's see. There you go. So if they do a Google search for that, they'll find it.
Vision 2030, instead of numerical 1, it should be ONE 1.
It should be what? ONE.
ONE 1. Vision 2030 1 million global leaders. It's my blog.
Okay. Kelly's gonna fix it for me because I'm covering up my camera and messing things up. So Kelly's gonna fix it for me. I'm not used to asking things from people. I just do things. So let's talk a little bit about your vision for 2030 because I'm curious. What is What is your vision for 2030?
This is the vision I have created. Why? Because uh, the baby boomers are retiring globally, and there is a leadership deficit globally. And the millennials, who are known as Generation Y, are not ready to take up leadership roles and responsibilities. And I am a Generation X, so I can work as a bridge between millennials, that means Generation Y, and baby boomers. So what I thought, since I came from a military background, I am passionate about leadership, and I joined when I was in the teenage. So I thought, let me groom some students as global leaders by 2030. So 1 million I thought of building 1 million students as global leaders by 2030. So I trained more than 40,000 students as global leaders, which is a non-profit one. Whenever any college invites, I go deliver, and whenever someone wants me to deliver convocation for an university, I go and deliver free of charge. So I do that. So in that way, I am building leaders. But after the coronavirus, things have changed. Physically training 1 million students by 2030 is next to impossible, because the education has changed online. It was now it's more of online education. So I started sharing more through videos and more through my blog. So and more, I'm conducting training programs virtually instead of conducting physically. Earlier I was conducting physically. Now I'm conducting virtually. There's a shift. There's a shift. The way I started accomplishing my goal of 1 million global leaders.
So, are you looking to partner with universities globally that have a digital platform?
Yeah, if there are some universities who want me to work, I'll be happy to work. I'll be happy to share. And if it is about building students as global leaders, I'll work. I'll work free, right?
I
If it is,
I don't I don't I
if it,
don't I don't I don't think you have to work for free. I think you have a value and your value needs to be paid because right now in this world, room and board, and global expenses, living expenses, need to be covered financially. So to get paid for what you bring to the table, I think is worth it. Um,
yeah,
I,
if you can allow me, I'll speak a few words. May I
mhm,
speak?
mhm.
Let me share with you. I am a follower of Peter Drucker, the father of modern management. So what he did was he participated in non-profits by adding a value, and he also worked for some organizations to take money. So similarly, what I do, I I give free knowledge to the students to groom them as global leaders. Okay, that's a non-profit one. And I also work for colleges on assignments where they pay me money. So one way I am working for money to get my living expenses. Okay, and at the same time I'm doing something by way of non-profits. That is through Vision 2030, 1 million global leaders. So it's a kind of balancing act. That's what I'm doing, because I have to survive, If I survive, then only I can share my knowledge. If I can't survive, how can I share my knowledge with the people? If you help yourself, then you can help others. If you can't help yourself, how can you help others? Yeah.
I I understand, and it's a delicate balance, right? Because there's greed and then there's sufficiency, right? And there's
Yeah, yeah, rightly put it.
well,
I
that's great.
emphasize.
That's straight from the book. So I'm not
I
that intelligent. We've
no,
got to give the credit
I,
due.
I emphasize need, not greed.
Yes.
Let us
Um,
emphasize need, not greed. Okay.
leading is different, right? Leading is by example. Leading is educating through your experience. It's showing others a way to save them the pain that you went through.
Yeah.
It's apparent and evident that you are a true leader, right? And like you said, people are usually not valued until it's either later on in their life, or they're gone, or outside of their own home. Um, it's how did you deal with the emotional side of the toxicity that you grew up with? Like, did you have to go through therapy, or was it just going into the Air Force and getting discipline, or like, how did you release that trauma?
See, it's within me. One, your life is in your choice. How you take it, it all depends on your attitude. Okay, so I was see, you can't choose your parents. You are born into it. It's not your choice. So you are born into it, right? You can't choose your birth. You can't choose your death. You can choose your friends. So that's what I am doing. I know what I can control. I know what I can't control. So I will only control what is within my hands. I never think of the things which are beyond my control. It's like wasting my mental energies. That will lead to lots of emotional challenges. So I always think of what is at my hand, what I can control, what I can do the best for others. That's what I think. Now coming to your question of coming out of toxicity means I joined Indian Air Force. It's a great stuff in my life, and although the life was very challenging, I felt that life was far better than where I was born. Right. That means you can understand how much pain I led in the place I was born, to the family I was born. Okay, that's one thing. It all depends on how you take it. See, whether you want to bend the world or you want to be bent by the world is in your hands. So it is in your hands. It all depends on your mental stamina, how you look at the things, your attitude, all those things. So my attitude is to control what I can control. Let bygones be bygones, and let us forgive and forget the unpleasant events. Let us not carry emotional baggage. And what we are having now is the present. What best we can do for myself, my family, and the people around me, and for the society. That's what I think. When I think in that way, where is the need for me to think about my toxic family background and the toxic people? Okay, if I find that somebody is toxic, I just stay away from them. That's what we can do.
You know, I understand, right? And I feel like in the US, and I can only speak for that, right? Because that's where I grew up, that's where I was raised. We make things a lot more complicated than they have to be. We make things, we make things very, very challenging upon ourselves. Um, and we find ways to make it harder. I think at the end of the day, we need a more simplistic mindset. And I wish I would have known this when I was younger, right? Like, I'm 41 years old and I'm still young. I mean, I have plenty of years left and I'm not worried about that. Um, but part of me wishes even 6 months ago I understood what I understand today, because there's choices I've made that I would have made differently. But that's okay, right? And I got to move forward. I can't change the past. I can't control the future. I can only live in this moment. Uh,
Excellent,
and
excellent. Well
I'm
said.
I'm finally starting to understand that. Can you explain your book a little bit more than the most recent one that the Dalai Lama wrote the forward on? Yeah, can you
So
explain that? Because I think
this is a book. See the light in you. Let
yes,
us not see the dark. Let us see the light in you. So be positive. Okay. Now this is the book. This book talks about mindfulness, spirituality, and the technology. How we have to use technology. Technology is both good and bad. It all depends on how we use it, right? A knife is if a knife is with the thief, you will misuse it. If the same knife is with the doctor, you will save the patient, right?
yeah,
Similarly, social media is like that. If social media is in the right hands of the right people, now you and I are connected. We are leveraging social media, right? That's
yes,
good. But there are people they misuse social media. So it's a double-edged sword. So I talked about technology. Technology is both good and bad. We must know how to harness technology. We can't throw out the technology like throwing the baby out of the bath water. That one I have talked. And secondly, the people are getting more lonely. They are getting lonelier They are getting more money. People are having more money, but the problem with them is they have got mental illness, health challenges, and third, there are two raising divorces globally and raising suicides. So like that, there are so many challenges across the world. So I thought I have written so many books like on students, leadership, executive education, learning, training. Likewise, I wrote so many books, soft skills. I have written 7 books on soft leadership. So I'm an experimental guy. I'm an experimental author. I keep exploring different things. So I thought, why not to explore mindfulness, because it's very much required. Then I authored this book by talking about this technology, relations, spirituality, then emotional baggage, monkey mind, how to tame the monkey mind, how families can live happily, how to come out of toxic relationships. Like that, I have talked various aspects about life, leadership, all those things. So at the end of this book, I conveyed a message. At the end of every book, I leave a message. So what message I have sent across in this book is that uh, emphasize the philosophy of uh, health first, education second, wealth third. That's my principle and philosophy. I always care for my health. If I am healthy, then I can focus on education. If I have education, wealth will come automatically. That's what I believe. So that's the message I have sent across this, and I give several examples of various leaders who led life peacefully, mindfully, and all those things I have written in this book. And this book is very much essential in the current context. I wrote this book before COVID-19, and it is more relevant after COVID-19 because COVID-19 is like a tumble that made humans humble. Because those who are arrogant, egoistic, they realized how fragile the lives are. Okay, so it's like rather I would say that coronavirus has emphasized simplicity, humility, and humanity. People were all connected across. Oh, coronavirus, we can die at any time. So all people came to one platform like human beings, and they were connected. They started emphasizing humanity. So it's a beauty in disguise. Although several people died because of COVID-19, I always see the positive side of life, not the negative side. The positive side is that we are leading to a trimmer, slimmer world, and we are focusing on what really matters to us rather than focusing on all unwanted things, useless things, and we started respecting people more. So these are all the positive sides of COVID-19.
Okay. And I really want to have you back again in April. And I want to talk about more topics, and I want to talk about more books, and I want to talk about other stuff that you're working on. And in the meantime, I'm going to start going through some of your books because I didn't do that. I'm going to. I want to help you expand your reach, and your message is pure and it's for the right reasons. And I think more people need to hear it. And I'm going to go out of my way to help you with that because I think that it's necessary. I think that it's important right now. Um, I want to end the show a little bit early just because I want to talk to you after this. Um, but I definitely want to go into more details, and I want to know if you want to leave everybody with one thing. What do you want to leave them with? And we're going to have you back in April, and then we might have you get back again after that also, because I think what you share is very important, and I think you have a lot of different topics that you can share with people. And I
Yeah.
actually set up a schedule to where maybe you come back every 2 months, and me and you talk every 2 months, and we pick different topics to talk about.
I'll be happy to be guest, and I'll be able to talk various topics because I have diversified knowledge. I have written books in different areas. I have diversified knowledge. I led many lives in one life. I was born in a toxic family. Then I led a military life as a soldier. Then I was an entrepreneur. Then I was a professor and educator. Now I'm an now I'm an author and a keynote speaker. I don't know what it will be in the future. So I led many lives in one life. So one way I'm very happy that nobody can see these many lives in one life, but I have seen many lives. So precisely, I'm a multifaceted personality with diversified knowledge. So hopefully I can add value to my audiences. And if you invite me again, we'll have one more conversation on a different book or a different theme, and we can share our knowledge. You can ask questions, and I will share my knowledge. I'm sure your listeners will enjoy listening and transforming themselves as better citizens, better human beings, and successful people and successful leaders.
So I want to thank you for staying up late, right? Because it's late there right now. What is it? 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, almost 12, or is it almost
Yeah,
12?
it's going to be night in India.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we had conversation for 45 minutes.
yeah,
I think I'm checking at my laptop.
yeah.
So
It,
really, really, I'm so happy that you demonstrated your positive attitude and you give me an opportunity. Express my gratitude to you for sharing my knowledge with your listeners. It's a great opportunity. I'm grateful to you, but I would like to leave a message at the end because I leave message here also. If you could allow me, can I
Go
leave a
ahead.
couple of messages or one or two messages, whatever it is. If you could allow me, I'll leave a message.
No, we have time. Go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, achieve success with integrity. So we must emphasize on achieving success with integrity. People and leaders, they are cutting corners. They are thinking of short term, not long term. So when we think long term, we tend to think differently, and we will try to achieve success ethically. That's one message. Second message is that love your mother, but don't hate another person's mother. That means you love your language, you love your country, you love your religion, you love your ethnicity, but don't hate another person's language, another person's religion, another person's community, and another person's beliefs. Because as your mother is precious to you, another person's mother is equally precious to him or her. So this is the message I want to give it to all people. There are plenty of messages, but I hope these two messages will help your audiences. Hopefully, when we have next conversation, and we'll be sharing some other messages depending upon the theme of the conversation.
Definitely. And I'm going to do this in closing, and then we're going to end this. Out of all the things you've accomplished in your life, and out of all the different titles you've had, one, I consider you a friend, and two, I'm going to call you a leader because you are a leader through and through, and you are a servant leader, and you are here to help others and show them the way. And I am very grateful that you are joining me today, and I'm grateful that you're going to come back because you definitely are. And we're going to have you come back a lot because not only is your knowledge, your experience, and your wisdom important to share with the world, but your perspective is. Because here in the US, I think a lot of times we forget perspective and we forget about a global perspective and we forget about what others go through. And I think it's very important that the world knows what others go through. So I definitely want to continue this conversation on a regular basis, and I appreciate you tremendously. So thank you
Sure.
very much. Thank you everybody for watching, and when you watch later, and have a great day.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.